Hello everyone and welcome back. So today we're down in San Pedro. We're going to take a trip over here to the port and go look for some interesting boats. So I came on this scene, which I found interesting, and I turned it into this value study, pulled out the darks and the highlights, and here's the sketch. So go ahead and stop the video and get your drawing done. So I start with painting the sky, and I got my brush upside down using the point to get the details around the cloud shapes, and then I switched to just a more watered down pale shade of blue, and again I'm using the point of the brush to cut around the details in the boats, and then mop it up wherever you put a little too much. I tend to be an overpainter, so I have to always have a ton of paper towels handy. So next, I'm going to come into the most palest area on the ship. It's sort of a cream color. And just get that whole silhouette of that shape. Now normally I would do all of the lighter shades first, but on this one I'm just going to jump straight into my darks because I want for these colors to bleed into one another and give me some soft edges on those boats. So this is kind of a dark maroon mixed with some raw sepia. And all this part of the painting I'm doing with the number 4 quill mop brush, Raphael. And now you see I'm painting in the side of the boat. The dark is the back, and here the maroon is the side. But I don't want any hard edges on there, so I'm doing one right into the other and letting it bleed in. And this one that's a little closer, it's a little bit more on the rusty orange side. But I still drop a lot of other colors into it, so everything's bleeding in. And just kind of keep pulling it all the way across. Changing up colors as I go, so there's a lot of a lot of variety and variation. But I'm mixing the orange and the brown, and the red I was using was quinacridone red. And then I'm still keeping my edges a little soft, so I'm pulling the sidewalk right into, or the concrete right into that boat where it's wet, and just skipping over the lines, keep some white where the white paint is. Just pull that gray all the way down, and then come back up and start putting in some more silhouettes of the cranes now. And I just try to really lightly scrape in those shapes. You don't want to be too heavy with those legs, and then they're far away, so keep them kind of a softer greenish blue color. And just dab it off if it gets too heavy. It still needs to be far away looking. And I don't paint every single detail on there, just there's the bridge coming in. The Vincent Thomas Bridge. And then some more big cranes up there behind it. The top parts of those cranes, they have kind of more of a maroon color in them. Some of the darker details built up. I'm just slowly dotting in darks and flicking in those lines softly and letting things break up. I'm just trying to keep it light and not too heavy since it's far away. So it's really dry brush here. It's not a lot of water on the brush. And then here's some little shapes that are down there, little buildings. Now I'm trying to give some vague detail into that boat. And I use the point of the brush to give some sort of sharp lines. Just have variations in the value, which gives the illusion of detail. And just slowly building up the darks. And then these are like some sort of rubber tires or something on the side. Not really sure what all the details are, but and here's the back of the next one. Little flag on the top. And then they've got the containers stacked up on the back of this one. So I go back and forth because some of the backs of those are really dark, and then the sides are kind of maroon color. Skipping around a little bit. And then here's the big arm of the crane up there. I always like all these industrial shapes and all the interesting angles. And here's some little tiny road cones and their shadows. And then there's a couple little guys walking along here. And I start with their bodies first. And pull down their torsos, and they get smaller as they go down like a carrot. But just the one leg is enough for this guy. And then I'll put his friend in, touching him. You want them to be connected a bit. And he's just got the one leg too. So just teeny tiny little heads. Otherwise, if you start with the head, they end up too big. And then these guys have their yellow hard hats on, and then some long drop shadows. And then there's this other structure here in the foreground. And here I'm working with some pretty thick yellow, so there's not a lot of water in there, keeping it pretty opaque. And just go right over that whole boat. Yeah, some things you have to paint around, and other things you can just go right over. And this sort of a painting, it's better to keep your washes intact than to try to paint around every little subject or shape. And the railings and these things, I'm trying to keep things a little bit disconnected so they're just not too heavy. Connect the shadows down there. And then at the end I come in with some white gouache and just touch in a couple more highlights. And then there's some white cones back in here behind the boat. And I'll lightly give it a bit of lettering. And then now I've got the X-Acto knife for just those really fine highlights with those ropes coming through the background. This way they stay very fine. And add a little scratching detail into the backs of those cart containers back there. There you have it. It's the much sped up version of this painting. But I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you again later.